organic.
Good.
No,
So,
I'll think myself.
yeah, just take your postcard and then just say done. Hand it to people.
It's like the only thing that everyone agreed on.
Yeah. Well, coming to Yang is either going to move. So I'm going to go hunt down Gordon. No, we don't want to at the core. We're starting. We're starting. I will call this meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Transportation and Public Works Committee. This day, March 18th, 2014. I'm Councilmember Kevin Reich. I'll be chairing the committee. I am joined by Councilmembers Palmisano, Gordon, and Bender. We are a quorum and conduct the committee's business. We have several items before us today on a pretty full agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 public hearings, but we'll do the consent items, and I will read those off. Just noting that I'll be pulling number 9 from the consent agenda so we can have comment and conversation about that item. Item 7 on the consent agenda is the 4th Avenue Street resurfacing project. That's an action to approve resolution designating the location of the improvements proposed, receive the cost estimate of $136,483, list the benefited properties, and direct the city engineer to prepare proposed special assessments against the benefited properties, and set that public hearing for May 13, 2014. Item 8 is the Hay Northwest Franklin Hall Lynn Park Area Street resurfacing project. Resolution designating the location of the improvements. Receive the cost estimate at $1,447,744. List the benefited properties, direct the city engineer to prepare special assessments against those properties, and then set that public hearing also for May 13th, 2014. Item 9, which we will pull for conversation, is the LaSalle Avenue Street resurfacing reconstruction project. We will discuss that in more detail at that time. Item 10 is the Penn Avenue South Street Reconstruction Project Phase 1 Contract Amendment. Authorize an increase to the contract to Meyer Contracting Incorporated for $3,648,043 to allow for the construction contingencies provided as part of the original project budget. No additional appropriation is required. Item 11 is the St. Anthony Parkway Bridge over BNSF Northtown Yard. It's a series of actions including execution of a purchase agreement with Ellis Spec 22329 LLC in the amount of $185,500 for 27,476 square feet of real estate at 211 St. Anthony Parkway. Authorize the execution of a purchase agreement with Gus Kempf Jr. Revocable Trust in the amount of $120,000 for 23,747 square feet of real estate at 3236 California Street. Authorize execution of a temporary easement agreement with Ellis Spec 22329 LLC in the amount of $54,500 for 58,990 square feet of real estate at 211 St. Anthony Parkway. Authorize execution of a temporary easement agreement with Gus Kempf Jr. Revocable Trust in the amount of $13,500 for 19,537 square feet of real estate at 3236 California Street Northeast. Authorize execution of a temporary easement agreement with Ellis Properties LLP in the amount of $57,375 for 41,243 square feet of real estate at 3147 California Street. Authorize execution of a temporary easement agreement with GG Real Estate LLC in the amount of $3,000 for 5,482 square feet of real estate at 81 St. Anthony Parkway. And the final action is to authorize execution of an access agreement with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to allow the project-related construction activities on Park Board property right-of-way. That is the conclusion of item 11. And then item 12 is the TOMC2 lease agreement. Authorize execution of the lease agreement with the TMOCO2 systems for the rental of carbon dioxide pilot unit to be used for the water softening plant. The estimated cost is $24,500 for a maximum duration of 10 months. Funding is available with the project budget. Item 13 is the Parkway paving and lighting improvement agreements. Approve of resolution authorizing execution of agreement with the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board regarding the 2014 paving and lighting improvement projects pending the satisfactory review of the proper city officers. Authorize adjusting of the capital appropriation for the Parkway improvement projects as follows. Increase the appropriation by $50,000 in the sidewalk section of the Transportation Maintenance and Repair Division. Decrease the appropriation for the Parkway paving street lighting to a total of $1,320,000 due to no park capital levy as part of the 2014 capital paving and street light replacement program, and increase the appropriation by a total of $446,658 to reflect the increased Metropolitan Council regional grant funds. And finally, authorize finance staff to adjust the Metropolitan Council Regional Grant Fund appropriations between Parkway paving and Parkway street lighting as needed, not to exceed the overall Metropolitan Council Regional Grant funding total. This item will be referred to the Ways and Means Budget Committee as well. Item 14 is street reconstruction assessment reductions. Approve a resolution authorizing the Hennepin County Auditor to reduce previously levied assessments against Wagner Partners Limited Partnership and Minnetonka Moxon Company Incorporated. This will be referred to Ways and Means. Item 15 is an engine braking ordinance. Set a public hearing to be held April 1st, 2014 to consider the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title 18, Chapter 474 of the Code relating to Traffic Code Vehicle Operation, prohibiting the practice of motor braking, also known as engine braking, on Interstate Highway 394 in the city of Minneapolis. This was introduced by Councilmember Goodman. Item 16 are bids. Accept the low responsive bid of Schaefer Contracting Company Incorporated for an estimated annual expenditure of $3,004,000 to complete the construction of sidewalks, curb, alley, drive approaches in the 2014 paving division, and accept low responsive bid of Dresser Trap Rock Incorporated for an estimated annual expenditure of $180,300 to furnish and deliver gray-black Class A aggregate to the paving division. These will be referred to Ways and Means Budget Committee. Those are the consent items. I will move all but item 9, which will be pulled for some conversation. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries. We now will discuss the item 9, LaSalle Avenue Street Resurfacing Reconstruction Project. I believe there's comment from staff. Director Cockey.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for pulling this item. I just wanted to give some clarification to this particular item because it's a little bit confusing. What this is it's actually two separate projects, LaSalle Avenue from Grant Street to 12th, which is a resurfacing project. And then there's what I call an adjoining project, which is the reconstruction of LaSalle from 12th to 8th Street. And the reconstruction of LaSalle will actually take place in 2015, and that's what makes this a bit unusual that we would be coming to the council at this point to have a public hearing set this early in the process. But the uniqueness of this project is there's a tremendous amount of utility work that needs to be done. The utilities would like to get in and make some improvements before we reconstruct the street. So in 2014, this summer, the utility companies will go in and make improvements to those utilities. Because of that, we thought it would be important to get this project and this issue in front of the property owners and the public early on to get them to weigh in just on the general nature of the reconstruction project. Unfortunately, though, there's a lot of design work. The layout actually hasn't been completed or approved by the council, which makes this a bit unusual. So what my recommendation would be is that we move forward with the actions that you have in front of you, but at the public hearings, and there'd be two public hearings on May 13th, that we move forward with the public hearing on the resurfacing project, but on the reconstruction project that perhaps we open the public hearing and then we hear any type of a testimony that we may have some adjacent property owners, but then we have a continuance and that we actually don't close the public hearing until Public Works comes back with a layout that describes the project in much more detail. And this gives us an opportunity to do that community engagement with the stakeholders as well as our pedestrian advisory committee and bicycle advisory committee and others about the particulars of the design.
So you're describing sort of almost a three-step process given the nature of that site.
Right.
Any further questions, comments? Councilmember Bender.
Could you, sorry, thank you, Mr. Cockey. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Cockey. Could you clarify the resurfacing project timeline? And because LaSalle is on the bike master plan, so is there an opportunity to incorporate bike lanes into the resurfacing portion of the project?
Mr. Chair, Council Member, the resurfacing portion for LaSalle from Grant to 12th is planned for this year. The particular time frame of that, I guess I'd have to look to staff to give me specifics on what time of the year that we'll be conducting that particular project.
Just quickly, thank Mr. Chair and Mr. Cockey. I think, one of the concerns I think is that when, because the roadway is a contiguous area, even though the reconstruction isn't scheduled for until next year, it seems important to have a consistent design across the roadway. So if we had an opportunity to implement improvements in the resurfacing project, so it seems important to me to go to the Bicycle Advisory Committee and sort of have staff take a look at what the options might be for that roadway, even though the reconstruction portion isn't until next year.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember, we certainly can do that.
Okay, seems like that's put in motion. Any further questions, clarifications, comments? Seeing none with that, I will approve with that understanding of the process that we have before us and understanding that the specific nature of what we have here to approve. I'll move approval of item 9, LaSalle Avenue Street Resurfacing Reconstruction Project. Approve the resolution designating the location of the improvements proposed. Receive the cost estimate of $5,400,000, list the benefit of properties, direct the city engineer to prepare proposed special assessments, and set the public hearing for May 13, 2014, and noting the comments made in terms of design input moving forward. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries. We've gone through our consent items. We can now move through our public hearings. The first one is the Penn Avenue South Phase 2 Street Reconstruction Project. Director Cockey, who will be presenting.
Mr. Chair, Bev Wormcar is our project engineer from Transportation Planning and Engineering, and she'll be making the presentation.
Oh, very good. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Beverly Wormka from the Transportation and Planning and Engineering Group. The public hearing that we are going to have right now is the Penn Avenue Reconstruction Project. This is the Phase 2 of the project. Last year, work was done between Crosstown and just north of 54th Street. This year, the project includes that north of 54th Street to 50th Street. This is project number 6748. It includes new pavement, curb, gutter, storm drain inlets, and street lighting. It will be constructed by both contractor forces and city forces. The estimated cost for the project is $5.1 million, and it's funded through net debt bond dollars, MSA dollars, and special assessments in the amount of $333,309.93. The assessments were determined using the influence zone area method and the 2014 uniform assessment rate, which is 80 cents per square foot of residential property and $2.39 for non-residential property. Meetings for this project began in 2012. We most recently held a meeting with the property owners along the corridor last Monday. We had about 15 to 20 attendants at the meeting, and I'd say the overall impression was favorable of the project moving forward. And most of the questions that did come up at that meeting were construction related. We will have another follow-up neighborhood meeting prior to the start of construction, so mid-April timeframe. I'm available if you have any questions for me.
Are there any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, thank you, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone sign in? No one has signed in. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in the public hearing regarding this project? Anyone here? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there any comment from committee? Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Bev Wormka, Stephanie Mulberg, and Jeff Handelin. You not only went out to the community community with a great presentation last week, but you also have been meeting regularly with the business owners near the 50th Street side, and I think those conversations are going well. I look forward to a smooth hybrid solution kind of project, and I just want to thank you for your attention to it.
Well, very good. Probably the testament to that work is not as active of a public hearing because the work's being done out in the ward, so always a good sign. Any further discussion? Seeing none, to approve the item 1 before us, the Penn Avenue South Phase 2 Street Reconstruction Project, as described in our packet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. I will now move to our public hearing number 2, the Riverside Extension Street Reconstruction Project. Director Kaki.
Mr. Chair, we have Chris Engelman, who is our project engineer from Transportation Planning Engineering, that will make this presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Chris Engelman. I am project engineer with the Transportation Planning and Engineering Group. I'm here regarding the Riverside Extension Project, also known as the 15th and 4th Reconstruction Project. The project itself is a proposed project itself is a reconstruction of 15th Avenue South from 4th Street South to 6th Street South, 4th Street South from Cedar Avenue to 15th Avenue South, 6th Street South from 15th Avenue South to approximately 200 feet east of 15th Avenue South, and 16th Avenue South from 6th Street South to a dead end. We are planning on full removal of the existing roadway, replacing the paving, base, curb, gutter, signage, and striping, storm drains, stormwater management technologies, drives, street lighting, a retaining wall, sidewalks, boulevards, and landscaping. The project is planned to be constructed this year, this construction season, with an estimated cost of $2.875 million. The project was funded over the 2013 adopted budget, the 2014 adopted budget, and has some monies available to it in the 2014 CIP. The project includes net debt bonds, stormwater revenue, as well as special assessments bonds. We are here for the public hearing to discuss the project assessments using the 2014 reconstruction assessment rates of $2.39 per square foot for non-residential and 80 cents per square foot for residential, for a total proposed assessment amount of $258,085.21. We also have the request for a public hearing for abandonment and removal of any conflicting areaways that may be in conflict with the project, as we shall identify them going forward. We have already addressed the areaways with property owners and have addressed the ones that we are aware of. I'm here to answer any questions regarding the project.
Very good. Are there any questions for the presenter for the presentation? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, and I will open the public hearing. This is the public hearing regarding the Riverside Extension Street Reconstruction Project. No one has signed in with the clerk. I will call on anyone who wishes to speak to this item. Is there anyone who wishes to speak here at the public hearing? Anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing for the Riverside Extension Street Reconstruction Project as presented by staff. Is there any conversation or questions from the committee? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to move this forward. This is an area of the city that until this year was part of the second ward, and it's actually a project I was very involved with for a long time while I was representing that area. It's great to see it coming forward. It's some streets that are in definite need of repair, and we're already seeing some more development in the area, and this will serve that well. It's also exciting to see that we're taking a little dead end that used to be part of the grid there, and we're going to open up, I think, some more developable land on it by making it more of a pedestrian plaza leading to the light rail station. For those of you who don't know, 15th Avenue that we're talking about is actually a connection between two light rail stations, one that'll be opening this summer over on the West Bank, and then the other one on the Hiawatha Trail called the Cedar Riverside Station.
Very good. Thank you for that comment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will move approval, or it's already been moved by Councilmember Gordon, the Riverside Extension Street Reconstruction Project. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting, nay. Very good. We now have item 3, our third public hearing, and that is the 5th Street North, 8th Avenue North, and 5th Avenue North, 58th Street East, Minnesota 62 Frontage Road South Street Resurfacing Project. Director Cockey, I assume it's Mr. Kennedy presenting.
Yes, Mr. Chair, actually, Mr. Kennedy, our Director of Transportation Maintenance for Repair, will be making the next 2 presentations.
Very good. It must be a sign of spring to have all these public hearings regarding road work.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, exactly. We have started our annual parade of resurfacing projects and public hearings. This is the first one here. Today, this morning here before you to talk about the 2014 resurfacing program for the 5th Street North, 8th Avenue North, and 5th Avenue North, and 58th Street East, and the Crosstown Frontage Road project, commonly known as 58558 Frontage Road. Makes it a little easier to say. On January 23rd, 2014, the City Council designated the locations, streets, and improvements proposed to be made on the project areas. The cost estimate for this project is $569,000 and is financed by net debt bonds and special assessments. The locations of the street resurfacing are as enumerated in your letter and as shown on the map here. There's a segment that is just west of downtown and then down near the crosstown that have been bundled together. The street resurfacing would be a mill and overlay of the street surface with plant mix asphalt. The project is scheduled to begin in the spring of 2014. Special assessments are being collected at the uniform assessment rates of 60 cents per square foot for non-residential and 20 cents per square foot for residential properties. And the total assessment expected to be collected is $355,510.80. There was a pre-public hearing meeting held on March 11th and 12th in 2014, and we had very few people attend. Therefore, our recommendation this morning is to pass a resolution ordering the city engineer to proceed and do the work and adopt special assessments in the amount of $355,510.80 for this project, and pass a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation to issue and sell assessment bonds in the amount of $355,515 for this project. That's the end of my presentation. If there are questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, thank you. And I will open the public hearing. And this is a public hearing regarding 5th Street North, 8th Avenue North, 5th Avenue North, 58th Street East, Minnesota 62 Frontage Road South, Street Resurfacing Project. Is there anyone signed in with the clerk? Seeing none, I will call anyone who wishes to speak to this item. Anyone wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, then I will move approval of the 5th Street, the project as described in the presentation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. We now march forward to our 4th public hearing, and this is the Loring Park Area South North Loop Area Street Resurfacing Project. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. On February 7th, 2014, the City Council designated the location, streets, and improvements to be made in this project area. The cost estimate for this project is $774,454 and is financed by net debt bonds and special assessments. The location of the streets to be improved are as enumerated in your letter and on the map that accompanies it. Again, it's just southwest corner of downtown. The street resurfacing would be, again, a mill and overlay of the street. The assessments will be collected at the rates, uniform assessment rates of 60 cents per square foot for non-residential and 20 cents per square foot for residential properties. The proposed total assessment amount is $489,856.90. Again, we had a pre-public hearing meeting on March 11th. That was sparsely attended. Therefore, our recommendation this morning is to pass a resolution ordering the city engineer to proceed and do the work and adopt the special assessments as enumerated for this project, and pass a resolution requested the Board of Estimate and Taxation to issue and sell assessment bonds in the amount of $489,856.90 for this project.
Very good. Are there any questions for the presenter from the committee? Seeing none, I will close, or I'll open the public hearing which is a public hearing for the Lorraine Park Area South North Loop Area Street Resurfacing Project as described. Is anyone signed in? No one signed in with the clerk. I'll ask anyone who wishes to speak. Does anyone wish to speak? Seeing no indication of that, I will close the public hearing. Is there any conversation or comment from the committee? Seeing none, then I'll move the Lorraine Park Area South North Loop Area Street Resurfacing Project as described in the presentation. All those in favor say aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. We now go to item 5, which is a public hearing regarding the Boulevard Vegetation Ordinance changes. Director Kaki.
Mr. Chair, we have Doug Gregerson, who's from our Public Works Administration Division, making the presentation on this item this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Doug Gregerson, Senior Management Analyst with Public Works Administration. We started to look at the process of how we handled complaints in the about vegetation in the boulevards late in the summer of 2012. We were getting numerous complaints via 311 about tall vegetation and vegetation creating unsafe conditions because of sightlines and just hard to see people behind the boulevards. Also, Councilmember Gooden's office had contacted us about a number of problem properties in her area. I have a PowerPoint here with a few pictures of these areas that have caused this, caused us to look at this process. This is an area in Pillsbury Avenue South where we had 10 to 12 foot bushes on the boulevard. It was very hard to see anyone behind them. Also, it would be hard to put any snow there without going out into the street. And the sight lines, when you turn the corner, were very hard to see without edging out into the intersection. Also, we had some other areas where it was hard to see signs, hard to see fire hydrants, as in 3646 14th Avenue South. And then there's a couple of other examples of signs being obscured partially. We also have areas where we've had complaints about structures in the boulevard, of raised plant beddings, those kinds of things, which are not allowed unless certain circumstances allow it with a boulevard permit. We even had a structure, and I believe it's still there, but in this case, the rocks are not allowed because opening car doors. The structure is too close to the boulevard, and there's also mulch that can go into the storm drain in this case. We found that within our current procedures, we did not have the ability to enforce or abate and enforce violations arising because of vegetation. Public Works is responsible for the right-of-way. However, other than our sidewalk group, Public Works does not have the function that enforces, abates a problem, and then bills or assesses the work that's done. So recognizing the problem, Public Works Management and Regulatory Services Management sponsored a business and process improvement effort to analyze the problem and recommend solutions. The BPI team had members from Public Works, Regulatory Services, 311, City Attorney's Office, and the Coordinator's Office. In short, the group recommended that complaints about vegetation in the boulevard be forwarded directly to Regulatory Services Department to work the cases. Regulatory Services already has inspectors in the field that inspect similar issues on private property and have processes in place to inspect, enforce, follow up, and abate, if necessary, through the use of contractors using the right equipment, and then to bill and or assess the work that was done. This recommendation was accepted by Public Works and Regulatory Services Management. We actually had this recommendation last season, but we held off until the new Director of Regulatory Services was in place. In order to accomplish this, we needed to amend Title 17, Chapter 227 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances to allow regulatory services to operate in the right-of-way as a designee of the city engineer. And we are changing, as we are changing the ordinance, we also tried to clarify some definitions and clean up some of the language. I should note the amount of interdepartmental cooperation that has occurred in arriving at these recommendations and going toward these solutions. Most uses of beyond grass and low flowers require a boulevard permit. Just to clarify a couple things, mulch is allowed only in a minimal amount of organic materials is sufficient for bedding. No rock or wood chips that could wash into the storm drains. Swales, they are discouraged because of utilities, trip hazards, and they must be able to drain properly. In all cases, these are referred to our subject matter experts in sewer and water, surface water and sewers, to go out and assess the situation prior to anything being allowed. If there's an issue with sidewalks, our sidewalk group is contacted and they go assess that situation. While we are allowing vegetables, we are not encouraging them. Boulevard is not considered the most healthy place to grow food because of street salt and debris. Also, structures are not allowed, and therefore tomato cages and staking should not be used. Overhanging bushes, anything hanging over the sidewalk is not allowed. For trees, we need a permit from the park board for any trees in the boulevard. I want to stress that we are planning on taking on it on a complaint basis only. We're not adding individuals in the regulatory services area at this time. So as complaints come in, they will be addressing them, or if they're noticing things while they're in a property or adjacent property, while they're doing their private property work. I'm available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Just one clarification or maybe an emphasis on the point. We're not seeking out to take away some of the fun, vibrant, sort of eclectic vegetation that we see out there. We're really zeroing in on strictly safety issues vis-a-vis right-of-way, visibility. That's sort of the tone and tenor of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to highlight that aspect of it. Any further conversation to the presenter? Councilmember Palmisano?
Yes, thanks for the presentation. Could you help walk us through how that process might work from a neighbor's perspective? Say a neighbor who has difficulty getting out of their car because of excessive vegetation or structures, mostly in the boulevard. How would they call 311, and how would that all work?
Chair, Councilmember Palmisano, the person probably should call 311. They would pass on that complaint to the regulatory services folks. They would take it on as a case and go out and look at that situation and decide whether something needs to be done with it or not.
If I may, so then would they work with the person to resolve the problem, or would they go back and issue a citation?
Noah Schuckman is here.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, committee members, Noah Schuckman from the Department of Regulatory Services. Through the chair, Councilmember Palmisano, we would typically issue an order if there's an obvious violation. And at that point, as we do with any other housing code ordinance violation, there's a contact number for the inspector and or for the supervisor on that letter. And any homeowner who had an issue or a question about the order as they were given would have an opportunity to speak with the inspector about that.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Gordon, followed by Councilmember Glidden.
And I suppose we haven't opened the public hearing on this either, but I'll just ask one question then. Have we taken any measures to communicate this? Have we talked to the communications department? Are we going to have some information about the changes? Because I think it would be really handy if there was a simple kind of one pager that outlined some of the things that you just said that we could communicate with people.
Through the chair, Councilmember Gordon, we have not done that yet. We will take it under advisement to do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks. I was going to hold my comment till after the public hearing. I kind of guess there's not a lot of people here on this, but just to give a little bit of background, since this was my ordinance introduction, this really, and I'm just have the fortune of bringing it forward, but this was really, I think, a good collaboration between Public Works and Regulatory Services that had identified, with some help from 311, that complaints that neighbors were making about very overgrown, obtrusive bushes that were causing safety issues, didn't really have a clear home for who was going to remedy them. And our ordinances, in fact, didn't provide how those issues would be remedied and enforced. Even though I think to the neighbor perspective, we have a clear department that often deals with tall grass and other types of issues, which is regulatory services. And boulevards are kind of this unique space that has control by the Public Works, but also by the Park Board because of the type of space that is. So this was really a business process improvement work. So that we did not have complaints going into a black hole, but now we have clarity between the departments and a good process that's now in place. And so I want to thank the departments for taking those issues seriously, working through them with our process, and coming up with a recommended remedy.
Thank you, Councilmember Glidden. I think that's very illustrative background on the origin of the policy before us, and I think that can only add to the backdrop for those who may want to make comment for the public hearing. Seeing no further questions or requests for comment, I will open the public hearing, and it's a public hearing regarding the Boulevard Vegetation Ordinance changes as described in the presentation. Anyone signed in with the clerk? Seeing none, I will call from anyone who wants to approach to make comment. Does anyone wish to make comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move approval of the Boulevard Vegetation Ordinance changes as presented. Any conversation, further clarification from the committee? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, and this is the other half of what I was going to say before. I'm very supportive of this. Councilmember Glidden raised some of the things that I think are really nice about this in terms of the interdepartmental cooperation on this. I think there's been a lot of questions in the past about boulevards and what happens and who's responsible. There have been stories of plantings on boulevards that have gotten cut down by Public Works, and then we hear about it later, and or by someone through Public Works. So hopefully this will prevent some of those when somebody does a beautiful planting, especially on a public area. But I also really appreciate the fact that we tweaked it a little bit, and now we'll allow some growing. I hear that it's not recommended. It's probably not the best soil or all this, but I think there are some opportunities that people would like to use. And that will be good. And I think this is kind of moving us a little bit along where we started when we looked at our just the way we're going to deal with natural managed landscape plantings on private property. So it's, I think, a good match for Reg Services because they're already looking at that and have some guidelines about how to make the calls on that and identifying noxious weeds and other things. So I like to see this coming forward. And I'm certainly supportive of it. And even though Councilmember Glidden is trying to give most of the credit over to staff, where it's probably due, I'll throw some her way because without a council sponsor, it wouldn't be here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. Thank you very much for that item. We now have item 6, which is the City Engineer Director of Public Works reappointment. I would like to give the floor to Mayor Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very proud to forward the name of Steve Cockey for Public Works Director. I have had the opportunity to work with Steve for many years now, and am just so impressed with the work he's done as Public Works Director in the city of Minneapolis. He oversees a very, very large department, and it can be tricky to get that right, and I think Steve has gotten that right. He's a great manager. He's recruited and retained a lot of really great talent into our department, and made sure that that everybody gets the training they need and everybody knows how to work in the city enterprise. He has the largest budget in the city. And as a council member, as the Ways and Means Chair, and now as mayor, I am so grateful that he has taken the time and the energy to really learn how the budget works, pays care and attention to making sure that it's balanced and that it's transparent, and has been proactive in finding new ways to save money, making sure that we get maximum value for tax dollars for the residents in Minneapolis, and has been willing to make some reforms inside the department to make that happen and make that true, and really spearheaded that. He is personally involved with a number of key projects here at the city, streetcars being number one on my list, LRT and transit projects, conversations about zero waste and how we're going to move forward on that. Steve has made sure, Mr. Kaki has made sure that he is personally involved in those and hasn't just, has made sure that he is right there with us working on these things. He's very responsive. He hears and he listens to what the policymakers look for, ask about, request, and he makes sure that the folks in his shop are responsive as well to policymakers. I was going to make a joke that, there's a couple. One is that the joke I was going to make was that the only downside was the ripple made through the city when Steve shaved his mustache. But I realized most people in the room weren't here for that, so that would not fly. But I will say this, and it's half jest, but it's actually really true, is Steve is a very good translator for engineers. That he is a good go-between for me, anyway, of engineer speak and non-engineer speak, which is a trick in your public works director, but invaluable. So I'm just very honored to forward Steve's name for public works director and ask that you support him.
So any questions vis-a-vis the appointment that's been forwarded by the mayor, the comments made? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing for item number 8. Or item number 6, rather, which is the appointment of Steve Kaki as Director of Public Works. Consider the Charter Department head reappointment by the Executive Committee of Mr. Kaki, the appointed position of City Engineer, Director of Public Works for a 2-year term beginning January 2nd, 2014. That is the item before us. I'll open the public hearing. We do have people who have signed in with the clerks. And I will go through them in order and then open up if anyone else wishes to speak that's not included in this list. I will begin with Alex Testulia. I probably mangled the pronunciation, so if you could say that plus your address for the record and proceed with your comment.
Yes, my name is Alex Satsoulis. I'm at 2920 45th Avenue South in Minneapolis. As a citizen, I represent the 2nd Ward on the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee, but today I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club as chair of the Land Use and Transportation Committee. I want to start off by thanking you for this opportunity to speak in support of Steve Kotke's reappointment as Director of Public Works. This department, perhaps more than any other in the city, has had a tremendous impact on how green Minneapolis is and will be in the future. From a sustainability perspective, Minneapolis has set impressive and lofty goals for itself, and as you probably know, transportation is the 2nd largest source of greenhouse gas emissions for the city, and road transportation accounts for over 75% of these emissions. If we as a city are serious about following our new climate action plan, we need to proactively address innovative initiatives and bold new approaches to reducing vehicle miles traveled. From mill and overlay projects to street reconstructions, from sidewalks to bikeways for everyone, Public Works can play a more instrumental role in how convenient, safe, and accessible active modes of transportation are for our residents and for our visitors. Biking, walking, and transit need to be prioritized over traffic and parking ramps. We hope Public Works will work more with CPED so projects can maximize smart, sustainable land uses such as transit-oriented development and density where we need to grow it in our city. It is our hope that Public Works continues to improve and work toward a transparent and proactive culture of community engagement, reaching out early and often to local residents as well as critical stakeholders such as the bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees is very important. Making this engagement meaningful is even more critical to get the best forward-looking projects so we don't fall behind our peer cities. Zero waste and zero emissions, 2 great goals for one Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I will call Amber Dahlman to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, and Committee. My name is Amber Dahlman. I'm the Physical Activity Coordinator with the Minnesota Department of Health at 85 East 7th Place in St. Paul. I'm talking to you this morning to discuss the importance of an effective transportation system and how it affects and can improve the health of the communities in our state. The Department of Health supports communities throughout the state in providing safer places for walking and bicycling. We know that walking and bicycling are the most accessible and sustainable forms of physical activity, and that health benefits can actually be realized from as little as 10 minutes of physical activity at one time. We want to offer safe places for people in our state to walk and bike, and providing an equitable transportation system for our most vulnerable users can help accomplish this and also improve the health within our communities. Community and transportation design matters. Local public health agencies throughout the state help build and support equitable transportation projects. The Minneapolis Department of Public Health has done this themselves. Some examples of the projects that they've helped collaborate with the Department of Public Works on include the Minneapolis Greenway project in helping to engage the community residents in a more innovative and effective way, supporting and increasing access around some of the public housing locations and making it safe for others in our community to access the destinations that they're traveling to in their daily routines. Supporting local business development in the community, and an example of that is the Venture North Bicycle Shop, and expanding the Nice Ride bike share system throughout the city of Minneapolis. There are other ways that the Department of Public Health can help support a more equitable transportation system, including through health improvement efforts related to transportation planning processes. It's important to have transportation professionals like Mr. Kaki, who are critical to advance and implement a more equitable transportation system that affects all mode users and the health of our communities. The Department of Health encourages transportation professionals like Mr. Kaki to be visionaries in collaborating with our local public health agencies and ask in our communities, how can health support more balanced transportation systems for the people in the state of Minnesota? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I will call Don Ostrom to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chair, members, I am Don Ostrom, 1201 Yale Place, Unit 610 in Minneapolis. I'm chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, a group of 15 citizen members from all over the city who advise the local governments on how to make Minneapolis safer and more attractive for people who walk, which is almost everybody, but especially includes people with disabilities, elderly people who can no longer drive, children who are too young to drive, low-income people who cannot afford a car, and the increasing share of the population, especially the young, who have chosen to do without a car and get around by walking, biking, and transit. With reappointment of the Public Works Director, this is a good time for city officials to think about how we can further implement the pedestrian master plan that was adopted by the City Council in 2009. Our Pedestrian Advisory Committee makes many, many proposals, but given the limitations of time, let me concentrate on just 4 recommendations for the Public Works Director and the City Council. Number 1, hire a quality professional for the open position of pedestrian and bicycle coordinator, and give that position the rank and authority in the Public Works Department so that he or she can be most effective. This is an important and visible position. Get it done right. Number 2, when streets are being redesigned, resurfaced, or otherwise reconstructed, put pedestrian concerns at the beginning of the process, not as an afterthought. Make Minneapolis truly a complete streets city. Number 3, clear the snow and ice from the sidewalks, the street corners, the transit stops. In order to clear the streets for cars, we threaten our residents with fines, with vehicle removal and towing fees if they do not get their vehicles off the street during the time we want to plow. We don't do anything remotely comparable for pedestrians. With sidewalks, if the property owner does not remove the snow, even if everything is done by the book, it can take weeks before we start snow and ice removal. And by then, it may be almost impossible to clear the packed down accumulation. We need a combination of early publicity to let all property owners know it's their responsibility to promptly remove snow from the sidewalks, actions by city employees and citizens to report violations, and if no action occurs, a shorter time frame before the city sends out professionals to get the snow removed. And we need to make changes in how the city and other governments clear the transit stops and street corners. Fourth and finally, improve the crosswalk markings. Make them permanent, make them more visible. This will help alert everybody that pedestrians have a place on our streets. With these 4 steps, plus many others, we can make Minneapolis more walkable, like it has become more bikeable, making us a more attractive city to visit, and most important, a better place to live.
Thank you for the comment. Duly noted. I will call Nick Mosen to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Chair Reich, Mayor Hodges, and members of the committee. I'm Nick Mason. I live at 4601 35th Avenue South. I'm a resident of Ward 12, and I'm here to voice my support for the reappointment of Steve Cockey as Director of Public Works. Some of you know me to be the chair of the Minneapolis Bicycle Advisory Committee, very important here, but I'm also the father of 2 young children. Part of my vision for One Minneapolis is a vibrant, dense, safe, and economically thriving community for my children. One approaching measure of that is that in less than 2 years, I will look forward to my daughter starting public school at Northrop Elementary. She'll have several years of biking and walking to school there, and I believe we can make it easy and safer for her and her classmates to get there by bike and on foot. We'll need to continue great leadership and vision to get us there, and hopefully at all the other schools as well. I want to commend Mr. Cockey for his role in developing the position of the city's first pedestrian and bicycle coordinator, and in hiring an exemplary model in Sean Murphy, who truly helped define this position. As we look to fill that empty role, I feel that it's imperative that the position gets elevated within Public Works to increase both its efficiency and effectiveness in the department and across other city departments. Over the next 2 years, we'll also need to work hard together to meet our city's goals for increasing bicycle mode share so that we don't get behind. Getting there means funding and implementing our bicycle master plan with speed and precision, but also with innovation like protected bikeways. Being successful means making sure that the city and Public Works are focusing not just on engineering and evaluation, but also on education, encouragement, and enforcement. Today, Minneapolis is a great place to ride a bike in some places. Together, we can contribute to one Minneapolis that is truly a world-class bicycle city in every neighborhood. I know we can get this work done, and I look forward to continue working together with Steve Cockey to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. I will call Nicole Nafziger to the podium.
Hi, my name is Nicole Nafziger, and my home is 5221 27th Avenue South in the Key-Waden neighborhood, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to speak to the need and also compliment the focus on bicycling infrastructure in Minneapolis and the need for continued improvement. A little backstory about me. My husband and I, a couple of years ago, with our 2 small children, realized that we were driving everywhere in Minneapolis, and it was ridiculous that we were within a mile or 3 miles of most of the places that we wanted to go. And we, because of the excellent infrastructure that we were already putting in place in Minneapolis, began biking everywhere we could bike. And we are committed to continuing to do that. But in biking everywhere that we can bike, we've also noted that there are places that are still terrifying or not comfortable, or certainly places where I wouldn't allow my 7-year-old to ride. And so my concern is that in doing some advocacy last year to improve the bike infrastructure on Minnehaha Avenue, and there's a little frustration with that process and in the outcome, that we have kind of shifted focus to thinking that we're nearly done instead of just getting started with the bike infrastructure in Minneapolis. I felt like Minnehaha was a really big missed opportunity to put in a protected bikeway, and I'd like to see that not happen again in Minneapolis. And In my work, I have the opportunity to travel to a lot of different cities in the U.S., including Chicago, Madison, Denver, and most recently Portland, Oregon. And all of these cities are doing some pretty major things to increase increase the quality of their bicycle infrastructure. I would say, with the exception of Portland, none of these cities are as nice to ride in as Minneapolis. But one thing I did notice in Portland was the addition of several protected bike lanes in their downtown area from the last time I was there, which was about a year and a half ago. They were pretty quickly able to put in these bike lanes, and they work really nicely, and they're actually add to the beauty of the city the way they've done it. And I just sit in those places and I go, there's no reason we can't have that in Minneapolis. I want a safe place for my kids to ride, and I want a fun place for us to ride. And so I just want to make sure that we continue to be committed to putting in a system of protected bikeways and not just continue to throw paint down on the road and call that good enough. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the comment. I will call to the podium Ethan Foley.
Hi, Councilmember Reich, Mayor Hodges, members of the committee. My name is Ethan Foley. I'm the Executive Director of the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition at 1428 Washington Avenue South. I'm here to speak in support of the reappointment of Steve Cockey as Public Works Director. As many of you know, I've been a fairly active resident around city issues for a few years now, and I've had a lot of opportunity to work with the Public Works Department, and specifically with Director Cockey. Through that work, I've really come to see that he is a really good leader for the department, has really helped us as a city move forward in a lot of important ways, and I've appreciated the fact that he is really interested and willing to collaborate with a lot of members of the community. I do want to look forward to the work that Director Cockey and working with all of you and everyone else in the community can really get done over the next 2 years. I want to talk about a couple things that haven't been touched on so far. And a lot of it's around culture. So first, I really hope that we can instill a culture within the department that embraces progressive change, looking forward in creative ways to how do we deliver services in the most effective and efficient ways to meet evolving needs. So really, I think evolving that culture is important. Also, I think meaningful engagement was brought up earlier, and I think that that's a challenging thing to do. Making it truly meaningful. Are we reaching people at a point where they can be a part of the process? And I think we've made a lot of strides there, but we still have a ways to go. And how do we make sure that we're engaging people of all types of people in our city? I think is really important for a number of goals. I think also we can do more to incorporate the really diverse goals that the city has in a number of areas, from equity to health to the environment, into the work of the department, and really in how it collaborates with other departments and partners, other jurisdictions, and the community. And then finally, of course, coming from the bicycle perspective, I really hope we can make even a further commitment to supporting a truly great environment for walking, biking, and transit in the city, and one that also connects that investment to development and growth, which are really important parts of things. So overall, we're at a great moment for progress in the city. Public Works plays a really critical role in that. And I'm really confident with the continued leadership of Director Cockey and working with all of you that we can move forward in a number of important ways. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. I will call, Dan Anselm or...
Sorry, my name's not easy to read. My name is Dario Anselmo.
Oh.
I'm a property owner at 322 First Avenue North. I'm also the former owner of the Fine Line Music Cafe for the last 20 years. I also started the Warehouse District Business Association, whose board I'm on, and a former member of the Downtown Council. I'm here speaking not for or against Steve Cockey. I think he's a great public servant. I'm really speaking to the matter of sort of the process that we went on with some of the issues in the Warehouse District that are still troubling and difficult. When the bike lanes were brought up in particular, and this is more of a process sort of thing for me and sort of the way to keep people participating in the democracy down here. The idea of bike lanes seemed a little scary to some. I'm actually a biker myself. I'm a member of the Greenway Coalition. I actually commute from West Edina, which is where I live, into Minneapolis, so I do appreciate great bike paths. I have questions on bike lanes and how they work in the transportation grid, and that mainly gets into how things work down there, and they haven't worked very well. But when this process started out about 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't really an open and transparent way for businesses to sort of participate in that. And that was difficult. In fact, there were some meetings that were held, and they were sort of city organized. I think there were some private parties that led them, that people were told if they came and voiced an opinion against the bike lanes or brought up the subject, the meeting was over. When we heard that, we knew there was a problem. We can come up with some names and some groups that helped coordinate that, but that was not something that made anyone feel too good about that. Ever since then, we participated along the way to try to add input to these sort of foregone conclusions of bike lanes, and we tried to help. We read the city's numbers, which sort of showed about 800 people a day. These are on the First Avenue bike lanes using them. That seemed a little suspicious to people who are actually down there that saw them, maybe occasionally went in them. We did our own polling. We found out that 400 people were using them a day. Now it seems like there's less. There's all kinds of reasons why people say that people don't use them down there. Hennepin Avenue, Nicollet seemed to work a little bit better. The snow that seems to come every winter. And we are a different city than Portland and Copenhagen and even Denver. We do have winter here. So it is a challenge, and it's something we need to take into account. But the process that we went through to get there was not democratic. It was not something that was really there. In fact, I even talked to the former mayor, who I like very much so, and talked to him about it. And I tried to make the point how our bike lanes, our transportation are linked to public safety, at least in the warehouse district. Because the reality is, if you walk down there, there's not a lot of businesses that are open. The Fine Line was kind of on life support when I sold it. Some new operators are in there. They're doing their best to make it work out. But if you want to see businesses like that work, you need to have people be able to get there. And people still use cars. I like to use a bike. I like to walk. I'd like to see multimodal transportation, but one of the 5 modes is cars. So we need to keep that in mind when we're planning the things. It's great to have the bikes there. It's great to see the work that the people from the Bike Lane Coalition are doing. We need to get more businesses and other citizens that are maybe in the North Loop participating in that process, and that would maybe be helpful. I've even talked to one of the bike shop owners down there who thinks the bike lanes on First Avenue are crazy. So there's other words that people use. I'm not going to say it here at a public meeting. So I'd love to see a process where we can really work on that. In full disclosure, just so you know, I'm actually running for office in 49A. I was just endorsed this weekend. I'm an urban-friendly suburban person. I'd like to stay that way. I'd like to find ways to make Minneapolis better. I love the city. I've lived in the city. And we need to figure a way to plug people in and do what we can do to do. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the extent of the list from the clerk. Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak? Anyone else wish to make comment? See none, I will close the public hearing for the reappointment of Director Steve Kotke as the City Engineer and Director of Public Works. Council members, any further questions or comments? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few comments, and I really appreciate everybody that came in here to testify. And I am supporting the reappointment of Director Kotke. I really appreciate the service that he's given to the city, and look forward to working with him in the future, as I think we discover the Public Works Department is more and more significant for us in reaching what we want to accomplish. I just want to mention a couple highlights, I think, that I've noticed in working with Kotke that I've really appreciated, Director Kotke. One of them is the Dinkytown Greenway. This is a significant piece of infrastructure that went into the second ward that we were really having a lot of trouble getting it done because it was running right along railroads, and if anybody's tried to work with the railroads, you know how hard that can be. And it also happened to be running right along the University of Minnesota, and if anybody's had to work with the University of Minnesota, you can know how tricky that can be. We ended up there, I think, with a great piece of infrastructure. It's not quite done yet. We're finishing a connection into downtown, a tunnel under 35W, and I don't think we would have had that tunnel if it hadn't been for the support of Public Works when we were trying to preserve that. And creative ideas about funding and looking into the future. I think that was significant. And I also think in the Dinkytown Greenway, we ended up with a protected bikeway path as a bonus that the university was willing to help put in. I also wanted to highlight the single stream recycling. When I first got elected 8 years ago, that seemed like a real a dream. We were trying to create pilots in different neighborhoods to prove that it could be done. It seemed to be so difficult and challenging and nearly impossible. but we kept working at it, and we were able to pull that off, and now I think it's seen by most people as a great convenience and a wonderful success, and we're seeing more waste get out of our stream. I also wanted to highlight openness to innovative stormwater management strategies and techniques. I think we've seen a lot of progress in that over the last 8 years. We've seen some innovation on Marquette and Second when that happened. I've seen some openness in my ward. We have some people who really want to try different ways to manage water. Also, when we did the Riverside Avenue reconstruction, we were able to get some funding and put in something very innovative there to manage a lot of rainwater right at 26th and Riverside. There, if you go by there, it's a great swale. Maybe it's even bigger than a swale, it looks like to me when I look at it. So I think that's fantastic. I also have to give credit to Director Kotke and Public Works for a lot of help with the Central Corridor project. That was an enormous project that when I first got elected, trying to navigate through that. Public Works has been there. They've been on it. They've been working with Met Council, and I think that it's going to prove to be a win-win. And I really appreciate all the work that was done in those areas. Looking ahead, I also think there's things that we can do to improve. There's a couple stories I have that aren't quite as great maybe as those ones, but I just kind of want to mention there are some times when I thought I wish we could have done that better. We had Minneapolis mentioned here. I think sometimes, we want to get along really well with all of our partners like the county, and the county's a big partner and it's a very important partner. But we've got to find a way to advocate for our city goals and objectives as we're working on that. And as everybody who was around when we voted on Minneapolis redesign, I didn't support it because I think it's a missed opportunity not having a protected bikeway there. Another thing I want to we kind of took a misstep on was our complete streets policy. I think we are still going to move forward on that, and we're going to end up with something really great. That's an example of a project that I wanted to help with and actually put some of my office resources into and to help shape. And that didn't happen, hasn't happened yet, but I think that it's going to, and we're going to move forward with. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. The last thing that I want to mention is the protected bikeway plan. And I actually had an opportunity to meet with Director Kotke, and so he's not being surprised by any of these issues. But I want to raise them publicly here because I think there are lessons that we can learn there. We had an opportunity with developing our protected bikeway plan of the health department was applying for a grant. It's interesting that the state, we have the representative from the state health department here talking about the importance of biking. And so through a state funding, we had an opportunity to get some outside help so we could really develop our protected bikeway plan, which we've set a goal of getting 30 miles of. And unfortunately, we didn't feel ready. Public Works didn't feel ready necessarily to take that funding and get the plan rolling. We're moving forward now with staff. We're developing that plan. I think the council is engaged, and I look forward to that. But hopefully when in the future, we can look more at collaborating with communities, interdepartmental collaboration, see where we can find these synergies. A great example we heard today was on the boulevard plantings, where we're seeing that already happening, and I'm looking forward to that happening again. I'm also very excited about the new bike coordinator. And I think I've heard some ideas about restructuring the department, so I think we can get to some of that community engagement and collaboration earlier on in these projects. Hopefully that would include our bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees as well as the neighborhoods and communities as we move forward. Lastly, I know that Director Kotke keeps his long-term vision on the important infrastructure of the city. I represent a part of the city that has the river running through it. I have 9 bridges that actually cross the river. So in the course of my time on the council, I realized how important this infrastructure is. One of those bridges actually collapsed while I was in office here. I just want to highlight the importance of maintaining those bridges and watching those, and I'm particularly concerned about the 10th Avenue Bridge. And so I want to be able to work going forward to get the funding we need to make sure that that bridge stays safe and stays strong. And I appreciate that the director in Public Works Department, I think, is also concerned about those and is trying to keep an eye on that infrastructure, which is already what we own in the public, and I think it's really important that we maintain those for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to speak briefly because this is an issue that's really important to me. Mr. Kaki, you have a pretty cool job. You're physically building our city for the future. And it is so important, I think, to for us to empower you to be a visionary while you're doing that. We need to build a city for the 21st century. And I think just kind of underscoring, thanks for the folks who came today to speak. There's so many reasons that we need to change course. Our city, like many across the country, spent decades building our streets for cars. And it has consequences for our environment, for health, for equity. And now going forward, it has consequences for our economy because the kids these days, they like to walk and bike and take transit. And those are the people that are going to be building our economy in the future. And so I think that you have a challenging job ahead of you, which is to change course and to change, turn this ship and to kind of start to retrofit our transportation system to be more balanced and to bring balance to the overemphasis on building for cars for so long. So I think you have a lot of support here from this council and our mayor, and we want to be partners with you. There are some things that are really important to me going forward, many of which I think Councilmember Gordon talked about, but adopting a complete streets policy that really talks about how we are going to do community engagement and how we are integrating bicycle and pedestrian improvements every chance we get on every project as much as possible, and that saves us money and is just the right thing to do. I think we need to adopt a visionary protected bikeway plan that looks at how we can invite more families, more people who aren't comfortable riding in traffic, to experience the joy of bicycling in our city. And that's something our city is known for and is so important to our tourism economy, to why people choose to live here. Kind of reemphasizing what a lot of people have said, the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator is really important right now because that person is charged with really helping the department move to a future where everyone is a bicycle and pedestrian coordinator as part of their job. And so elevating that position is something that I think a lot of people are really excited about and that I also support. So I'm happy to support your reappointment today. I look forward to supporting you and working together to bring a lot of vision to balancing our transportation system.
Any further comment? Councilmember Glidden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm very pleased to support Mr. Kaki's reappointment today. I've had the opportunity to work with him since the first day he was appointed to accept this job, and it's a big job. I appreciate that Councilmember Gordon mentioned a lot of specific programs and initiatives that come through this department, and that's in part why I want to say this is a department that really touches a lot that we work on and experience in the city of Minneapolis. One thing I have particularly appreciated about Director Kaki is some of your leadership style and some of your qualities that I think make you a good leader. And I just want to say from my experience, I really perceive you as someone who is open to new ideas. You do it in a process way, that I think is particular perhaps to a public works culture, but I have experienced that you're open to new ideas, that you will work towards incorporating those. And I think as Council Member Bender reflected, we have to be open to new ideas and new ways of doing business if we're really truly preparing our city for the future. And the future involves change. It doesn't involve doing things in the status quo and in the same way that we've been doing them. One thing that I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address, because it hasn't yet been brought up, it's been mentioned, but maybe hasn't been brought up in a significant way, is that we have talked a lot about equity and racial equity as part of our vision for the city. Particularly as we enter into this term, and
again, because Public Works is a very large department, because you hire a lot of people and contract with a lot of people, because you affect how our infrastructure is developed and how our services are delivered in so many areas. I just see Public Works as having a very large impact in this area, and I know that you're very aware of this as well. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say something, if you desire, about how you perceive moving forward and learning about how work on equity and racial equity can impact the work of the Public Works Department.
Thank you, Councilmember Glidden. I'll see if there's any more commentary from the committee, and then we'll yield the floor to Director Kotke to address us and the public. Any further comment from the committee? I just wanted to sort of revisit a very significant and central point raised by Mayor Hodges. It is, and it has been iterated by other commentary as well, it's a vast department, and to get it right, as the mayor put it, is no easy task. And getting it right has many layers: budgetary, personnel, the complexity of any given project, be it water, transitway, bridges. I mean, the dollars involved, the jurisdictional sort of conversations involved, highly complex. And to get that right is no easy task. But when you do get it right, you find yourself in the best, if not the prerequisite position to engage in innovation, to provide leadership in the areas that we were talking about today that are directed by Public Works. And so all the things that we've highlighted, and they're not exhaustive of your accomplishments to date, are based on that fundamental strength of yours and your ability to be a leader and to engage in new ideas from a position of strength due to your managerial accomplishments. But also it gives me great confidence, and I hope others as well, as we appoint you and approve your appointment and moving forward, that we are in the best position to innovate and to address infrastructure and public works activities for the next century. So I wanted to make my confidence in that public. With that, I will yield the floor to Mr. Kotke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start by just responding back to Councilmember Glidden regarding the issue of racial equity. I think I need to start out by thanking Velmer Corroll about educating me and kind of an awareness issue about racial equity and what it really means. When I thought of racial equity previously, quite honestly, in how Public Works could influence the issue of racial equity in the city, I was very much focused on the issue of hiring. In the diversity of our workforce and where that is still very important and is something that we're working towards. The issue of racial equity and the services that Public Works provides our citizens and how we have impacts that actually we weren't even aware of. And I'll use an example on this. And it was a bit of a coincidence. I want to give some credit to John Wirchus in our traffic and parking area. He brought some information to me last year regarding the citizen survey, and it had to do with satisfaction of street lighting throughout the city, and that we had this kind of outlier in that citizen survey, that on the north side, the satisfaction survey showed it was much, much lower than the rest of the city. And it was quite puzzling because the way we provide services, we didn't believe that we provided any different level of service on the north side than we did elsewhere. So it was very intriguing. About that same time, as we were working with Velma and her staff, we found out that the city of Seattle had discovered exactly the same type of issue, and had done some digging into it and realized that the manner in which they were providing services actually was a result of that, and it had to do really with the issue of how we replace streetlights that are not functioning. It's due on complaint basis versus kind of going through and just methodically replacing the fixtures. And so one of the things we did in this, actually for the 2014 budget, we put some dollars in John's budget to investigate this more thoroughly and really understand why we have this. Is it a perception issue? Is it a reality issue? Well, what's the problem? But it's those types of things that aren't always apparent that, that we need to drill down into. And I think really this is where I think the department is at currently on the issue of racial equity, is to really understand, the services we're providing our citizens and where are we unintentionally causing some racial inequities. And so we're currently, participating in the Racial Equity Procurement Advisory Group, as well as the Racial Equity Feedback Group, working very closely with Velma, and we'll continue to do that. And I think this is going to play a big factor as we start developing our business plan for the next 5 years. So. Perhaps first off, I just want to thank everybody for their thoughts and comments and a lot of kind words. One of the things that I've learned over the last few years that in an organization is it's really only as good as its employees, and we have some just great employees in Public Works. And I'm also very fortunate to have some incredibly competent leadership team in Public Works with our division directors led by our Deputy Director Heidi Hamilton. The other thing I think I've learned that it was maybe echoed a bit here is that even though I think we are very knowledgeable about the businesses that and services that we provide, we don't know it all. And that it's really important for our organization to stay very open-minded to new ideas and listen to feedback. Look at really kind of the big picture of what the city's interests are. I think it's sometimes it's very easy to get fixated on our particular issues and goals within the department, but I think it's also important for us to step back and look at are we really accomplishing some of the city goals that were set by our elected officials. So I think that is one of my big takeaways over the last few years. With that, I'll just indicate it really has been an honor and pleasure to serve the mayor and the council for the last 8 years, and I'm very excited and look forward to serving as the next 2.
Thank you. With that, I will move to forward to the full council the Charter Department Head reappointment by the Executive Committee and Mayor Hodges of Steve Cockey to the appointed position of City Engineer, Director of Public Works for a 2-year term beginning January 2nd, 2014. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Dissenting nay. That is forwarded to full council. Thank you very much. And we now go to, we have a receive and file, item 17, and that's a quarterly submittal of the traffic zones, restrictions, and controls. Is there a report that goes with that, Director Cockey?
On 17, the quarterly submittal of traffic zones, restrictions and controls, this is just a receive and file, and we don't have a presentation, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for the item before us? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving and file the quarterly submittal of the traffic zone, restrictions, and controls, say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. We now have our final item, which is item 18. It's a discussion item, and it will be a presentation on the implementation of the citywide residential organics collection program. And we do have a report. Director Cockey.
Mr. Chair, we have David Herberholz, who is our Director of Solid Waste and Recycling, to make this presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Dave Herberholz, and I'm the Director of Solid Waste and Recycling for the Department of Public Works. Pleased to be here today. I think you've seen a letter in your packet regarding the subject of implementation of citywide residential organics collection program. Recommendation currently is to receive and file the presentation that I'm going to make. The previous directives, I guess it's important to note, is that back in November 2nd of 2012, staff were directed to study city collection of source-separated organics, taking into consideration the Citizens Environmental Advocacy Committee, CEAC, memo dated August 6, 2012, regarding the scope of the study and questions to be considered, and report the findings to the Transportation and Public Works Committee in April of 2013. That report actually was presented and approved in October of 2013, a little bit late. So I'll go through with a PowerPoint presentation that'll kind of give greater detail to the background of where we're at. Why collect organics? State of the industry. These are certain slides we're going to get into a little more depth on. What are source separated organics by definition? Our pilot program, project goals and summary, the study that was done by FOTH, implementation difficulties, and then a citywide organics recommendation, and we'll open it up for comments. It's important to note, I think, and to have this slide in here that shows the Minnesota waste management hierarchy, kind of preferred method at the top, going down to least effective at the bottom, being landfill. Organics recovery is somewhere right in the middle. Why collect organics? A little background on that. Pilot projects were started in 2008 in Minneapolis with the intention of gathering additional data regarding citywide organics collection program. We do have a city sustainability plan goal of 7% organics recovery by 2015. And I think you all might be aware of the Hennepin County recent resolution that calls for us to implement a program for organics collection by January 1st of 2015. And implications of that is that we receive the SCORE money from the county right now. This year was $864,000, and there's the potential risk for losing that if we don't work towards this resolution. Hennepin County goals in solid waste management master plan. You'll see on, once again, it's a hierarchy of initiatives. Organics recovery in the middle, goals of 3 to 6% organics recovery 2015, and it progresses up to 9 to 15% by 2030. In 2012, I'll note that Hennepin County achieved 4% organics recovery. Makeup of organic materials in Minnesota Public's garbage can be upwards of 40%. You can see the breakdown there, majority of it food waste and compostable paper. It's important to note the state of the composting industry. And this kind of gives a perspective nationwide that residential organics collection are found in 15 states and over 150 communities in the U.S. And Minnesota ranks third there, only behind California and Washington with 21 programs. And this, the source of this is Biocycle magazine. State of composting in Minnesota. So I think it's important here to note facilities that can process source separated organics. We've got 4 in the Twin Cities region, City of Hutchinson, Full Circle Organics in Becker, the Shakopee Tribe in Shakopee, and SET, Specialized Environmental Technologies in Rosemont. And then there's 2 in Greater Minnesota, and that's Full Circle Organics in Good Thunder, and then the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District in Duluth.
Excuse me. Oh, did you have a question, Councilmember Gorsuch?
Sure.
Well, I did just on this slide, if I could. Are any of those in Hennepin County?
No, they are not, Mr. Gordon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and there's currently the state MPCA compost rule changes that are being finalized. I believe the case is being contested now, but those should be finalized later in 2014. And with that, we're hoping and optimistic that there'll be additional facilities that potentially will be able to offer source-separated organics processing service. Definition of source-separated organics, as described in this picture, kind of gives a good perspective of it. Food waste, which would include meat, dairy, and bones, non-recyclable paper, certified compostable plastics, plant debris, and other items such as cotton swabs, Q-tips, wax paper, dryer lint, and vacuum bags. And I think it's also important to note that with backyard composting, right now meat and bones are not desired. A little waste overview, where we're currently at as of 2013. We had 14% being composted, which included our organics pilot program and then our yard waste programs. And the study that was done by FOAF shows that we would be able to recover an additional almost 8,000 tons of organics that would then move that composted percentage from 14% to 19%, where 30% of the composted material would be organics. A little overview on our pilot project. The pilot project design, it was an opt-in participation program. It concentrated just on source-separated organics, the household organics. We collected on a weekly basis. We use a 64-gallon dedicated vented cart. There was no additional cost to those that participated in the pilot. And the neighborhood-based routes were done in 2008 and 2009. And then we we filled out the weekly collection route from the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday collection based on our garbage collection routes in 2010. So we run a truck with 2 individuals full-time during the week. Summary of pilot projects, 5% of the customers in the city are eligible to participate in the existing pilot, so approximately, a little over 5,000 of our residents. Pilots are included in Linden Hills, East Calhoun, and then parts of Cooper, Hiawatha, Howe, Longfellow, Phillips, and Seward neighborhoods. And depending on the neighborhood, 30 to 53% of the eligible households opted in to participate. This full study found that we could anticipate collecting 7.5 pounds per dwelling unit on weekly collection. Our pilots are actually collecting a little bit more than that. Pilot project next steps. I think it's good to talk a little bit about this because even though we've had the pilots around since 2008, we have actively looked at ways to possibly glean more information on collection methods and habits. And one of them that we were looking at was modifying some of the existing pilots to possibly co-collect yard waste with organics. That has some roadblocks there right now. So through the efforts and engagement of the Hale, Page, Diamond Lake, and Tagletown neighborhood groups and their initiative, we are looking to begin a residential organics drop-off site at Pearl Park around Earth Day of this year. And some of the unique things, items behind that is that those neighborhood groups will provide the volunteer staffing and resident education. It's a cooperative partnership with the Minneapolis Park Board. They are hosting the site. The city is going to provide the organic carts there and actually do the collection and try to gain information on participation, where the individuals are coming from, volumes collected. The organics collection study was done, as I said, completed in October of 2013, and it was done to look at collection methods and options and impacts to identify the most feasible collection options for source-separated organics, looked at cost, participation rates, greenhouse gas emissions, and then obstacles for providing that collection. The FOAF study studied 5 different collection methods. Number one being no source separated collection, so basically our current program where all the organics would go to HERC. I've got an asterisk on there because if we were to maintain that collection program, it conflicts with the Hennepin County resolution, and we would risk the possibility of losing the SCORE funding, which currently is $864,000, and with some proposed future desire to get more money back from the MPCA, it could be upwards of $2 million. The second collection method would be to collect source-separated organics alone, as we do in our pilots. The third collection method is to commingle it with our yard waste collection, utilizing a dedicated cart similar to our organics pilots. And then the fourth and fifth collection are a blue bag approach, where we would co-collect blue bagged organics with our yard waste program, or co-collect blue bag organics with our garbage program. If you see, the costs are significantly higher for those programs due to the difficulty on separation and then increased processing costs. A little pictorial just on those different methods of collection. This is the way you would envision seeing the carts at the alley or curbside. So in our current collection program, you see the 95-gallon or 94-gallon garbage cart, our new recycling cart, either 96 or 64-gallon, and then primarily bags for yard waste during the season, but some individuals also use their own garbage cans for that. The second method of collection, which is similar to our pilot right now, has the garbage and recycling, and then a dedicated organics cart that is 64-gallon. We could be elective in that and actually use a smaller cart, but I think 64-gallon is the way to go. And then with that program, even in the pilots, we also collect seasonal yard waste in either cans or bags. Number three are, if we were to move ahead with a source-separated organics commingled with yard waste, we would have a dedicated can that you see there that would be used for combining yard waste and source-separated organics, along with our garbage and recycling carts. Incremental cost estimates, and this was done by staff calculations, working with our business analyst and accountant. If we were to collect source-separated organics alone, we would look at a cost of $2.38 to $3.25 per dwelling unit per month. That cost, if we were to commingle it with yard waste, would be higher at $2.52 to $4.09 per month. And also, one of the factors that has to be figured into this is that we currently contract half of the city for collection, and as of right now, we don't have a defined collection price with MRI, our collection contractor.
Director Hoberholz, I guess that point being is, moving forward, we would have to work with our partners as we move to program implementation with their input and direct communication.
Mr. Chair, that's correct, committee members. We've had some preliminary discussion with MRI and are actually looking at the possibility and what it would take for them to provide us pricing on collection.
Thank you.
A big barrier to commingled collection is the Emerald Ash Borer in Hennepin County right now that requires us during that season to grind all material before it leaves the county. So there's really not an awful lot of data out there as far as contractors that would actually take source-separated organics combined with our yard waste and grind that material. So it's a very, very difficult potential operation, and we're actually looking and due to talk with St. Louis Park, because they actually in the past fall had a commingled collection program that had some difficulties, and we're hoping to learn from some of their information that they had gained. Recommended collection method. Should we decide to move forward, our recommendation right now, just because of the impacts for some of the other programs that we talked about, or methods of collection that we talked about, would be to look at source-separated organics collection alone, utilizing a 64-gallon cart. By going ahead with that, we would still have the potential for future, if the Emerald Ash Borer and some of those barriers were worked out, to commingle that material with yard waste. And I think it provides greater options then for processing alternatives in the future. Impact on where we're at with vehicle and staff. Source-separated organics collection program alone, we would, on our half of the city, we would need an additional 11 trucks. This would be eight dedicated route trucks plus a spare, and these are trucks that are the rear load packers similar to what we have right now. We need to expand our cart service collection due to the impact of rolling out additional carts, and then we'd have a dedicated pickup to an additional foreman. And then our contractor needs would be similar, 10 total, 8 route packers and 2 spare packers. Once again, important to note that we provide the administration and kind of maintenance of the program. Once again, the dwelling unit price we're looking at being $238 to $325 per month. I'll summarize kind of the additions for organics collection. Some one-time cost estimates. We anticipate with our public of 105,000 single-family homes, we would anticipate with an opt-in program of having to purchase 60,000 carts. That would be 50,000 of the 64-gallon carts for organics. Plus, we believe that we would order 10,000 additional small garbage carts because more individuals would be able to divert that organics out of their waste stream and be able to work with a smaller garbage cart. Once again, the 11 trucks, and once again, the cost of the carts, approximately $2.7 million. The 11 additional trucks at $2.5 million. And then with the additional trucks, we'd have to do some modifications to our facility right now to house those vehicles, and we're uncertain right now what that cost would be. To maintain the program, our ongoing cost estimates is, once again, the 21 additional full-time staff. So that would be 2-person crews on each truck plus some additional administration at $1.5 million per year. The additional expense from our contractor, not in stone right now, but we're anticipating an additional $2 million per year there. And our vehicle maintenance, there's some uncertainties there, so that's some pending cost. The full study showed just less than 8,000 tons of potential organics being diverted from HERC, which would result in $80,000 savings per year. And then the overall result would be an increase in 5% of compostable recycling. Next steps, if source separated organics collection were to go, would be to receive direction from council. This would require an appropriation increase required to purchase trucks and carts. We'd have to develop a program implementation plan. We have to explore short and long-term options for facility improvements needed in truck storage maintenance. I think it's important to note, too, that we have our current site at 2710 Pacific is an older site that was constructed in 1948, and even prior to the discussions on organics and that, we were already looking at some facility improvements there, and we currently have a study that's looking at that right now. Once again, would need to negotiate a rate with our contractor. We need to acquire trucks and carts. New trucks take approximately 6 to 8 months for delivery. Carts about 5 months, and then 3 months to hire staff. Our solid waste and recycling service costs. So as of right now, we service 1 to 4 dwelling units. By ordinance, the current base fee is $17.60 per dwelling unit, which includes garbage, recycling, yard waste, our voucher program, and our bulky or problem material collection. The weekly garbage collection, additional cost. If a resident has the larger garbage cart, they pay $5 per month. And if they have the smaller one, they pay $2 a month. So with our increase for organics collection needs, we would have a range of $19.98 to $20.85 per dwelling unit per month. And once again, the extra carts are there because we feel that there's residents who will be able to save that $3 per month by using a smaller garbage cart. And then the county resolution talked about a requirement of 5 to 8 dwelling unit buildings, which we don't currently service. So in order to do that, we've got an ordinance out there right now that addresses recycling in multifamily dwelling units, but we would have to modify our ordinance to include and offer, have the opportunity for organics offered to these 5 to 8 dwelling units. And with that, that completes my presentation, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Councilmember Gordon, followed by Councilmember Glidden.
Thank you. This is very interesting, and it's exciting to see it coming forward. I had some questions about the opt-in versus the everybody gets the service options. And what we saw was the costs with the opt-in for the 60,000 households. And then, you know, the number of trucks, the number of staff all seem to flow from that. If we doubled that and did all households, would that mean we would be doubling our costs and the staff and the number of trucks? It seems to me maybe not the number of trucks, because they're going to have to run down, do all the routes anyway. But have we done a comparison, I guess I should just ask, of the opt-in and the everybody in, I don't know what the other name would be, program? And I'm also, I also want to note that I'm clear on this. Even though it's opt-in to get the service, the cost will be spread out on all households, correct?
Correct. Mr. Chair, Committee Member Gordon, that is accurate, that the program design would be that all residents would pay that base fee requirement. The opt-in and the desire there is that quality control is such an issue that we would want people that were dedicated to organics to opt in rather than going out and giving everybody a cart and then not have them participate in the program as effectively. So the study had showed that we would anticipate, and this is also from our pilot programs right now, where we've got participation in the 30 to 53% range, that we use 40% as an opt-in, a potential opt-in, and then we would then build upon that. But to answer your question, as far as our trucks and that, should be very little impact on that due to them already driving the alleys and the roadways there.
But the carts would change then, because if we gave everybody a cart as opposed to the opt-in, cost would go up.
It would. We had built in there 40,000 plus a buffer of 10,000, so 50,000 total organics carts plus some smaller carts. So with that expense of $2.7 million, if we were to give everybody a cart, we would then be looking to at least double that initial price.
So that would be and the staff was another figure. The 21 staff would stay about the same. I believe
it would be fairly close, if not maybe a little bit more. But we haven't really got down to studying that in detail.
And then one other question for now, which has to do with the revenue that we're bringing in, the $2 to $3.25 per household. Does that give us any extra money for education and outreach?
And I'm kind of looking to Kelly, our recycling coordinator. I don't think we had a whole lot of money built in there for education. I think our thoughts are that similar to recycling and having a recycling coordinator on board and working with the county, that it would be a good portion of our communication plan. And if it really needed more dedicated funds, I guess we'd have to look at that. But I think for the most part, we've got some education in there, but not an awful lot of dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I had a few questions, and then maybe just a note to the clerk, because I know we probably got the presentation. I don't know when you got the presentation, but it's not linked yet. So we want to make sure, because this is such a meaty presentation, that we're able to link it, and it helps us to be able to have access to it after this meeting. Did you have a time frame within which you were looking to get council direction on these recommendations? Just because I didn't see that within the RCA. I know it's not today because, right, we're just getting this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Committee Member Glidden, I don't think we really had a timeline. I think Mr. Chair might want to speak to that.
Okay.
Councilmember Glidden, I'm going to be forwarding a staff direction to have a full council study session. obviously coordinating with yourself.
Okay.
And you.
And that might be a great opportunity to flesh out some of the reaction to some of these recommendations. So that makes sense to me. Couple just thoughts that kind of came to me, and I'm not looking for response right now. Just knowing again, you're going to have a more developed or robust opportunity for discussion, perhaps in a study session. But I wasn't thinking to ask a question about communications, but hearing your response to Councilmember Gordon just made me think we may want to really think this through just a little bit more. What's our programmatic approach to communications? Just because I perceive composting is pretty different from recycling, just because even though folks were doing recycling where they source separated, they were still doing it. And they, as part of a city program for several years, and so there was more familiarity with that as a program. And I know we're thinking of composting as you recommend opt-in, but still I think there's probably going to need to be just more thought towards what's sufficient communication. Just knowing that there's a lesser degree of residents who are familiar with the program, and even looking at what's been the participation rates in the pilot programs, I think is also instructive. It needs some communication education to have some degree of participation in the correct way. Another question that I had was more behind your recommendation to do the organics only, as opposed to the organics combined with the yard waste. So I understand the more practical suggestions or pieces to that, which is it costs more. We're still dealing with the ash borer, and I know I'm kind of skipping over how you as a professional would articulate those reasons. But the thing that comes to my mind is, again, more is participation rate. And so are there things that we're losing by not starting with a combined program in terms of participation rate and education that may make it more difficult for us to add those elements later? It's just really a question. Again, people are more familiar with using the city for pickup of their yard waste, and thus kind of composting, I guess, their yard waste. And would that add to participation in the program, just knowing that if someone accepted the cart, they're already familiar with yard waste participation, and now that would help them to add the new element of organics compost. So it's just a question that I hope maybe we can have more discussion at the study session. And then the last item that I wanted to highlight, which I know you're extremely aware of, and it kind of, because we've discussed it a little bit before, I know the chair is involved in just thinking about this issue, is that, as Director Kaki said, I think we're looking at what are all the opportunities for hiring within the city and how that might help us think about issues of racial equity and our hiring goals. And of course, this is an opportunity for adding a new service to the city portfolio, which adds, as you've articulated, a certain number of jobs, and how we're thinking about that. And I know I'm already getting contacts from the community with awareness of these jobs opportunities, which are nice jobs and full-time jobs, and how we're thinking about those issues as we move forward. So.
Thank you, Councilmember, and just expanding on the one point regarding waste collection and how we're more familiar with that, with option 3, knowing that as we look at the different options, and if we do have impediments for, say, option 3, ash borer being one of the main ones, that there's some thought given to if there's an option 2 readiness now, that option 2 is done in a way that doesn't preclude an eventual option 3. And I'm just throwing that out there in advance of our more fulsome conversation that we'll have moving forward, and as you work on it with your staff.
Mr. Chair, and I guess in answer to Committee Member Glidden, a quick answer to that. As far as the commingled approach to collection right now, we did actively look at that, and will continue to actively look at that. But as of right now, we don't have any processing facilities that are committed to taking that material.
Okay, noted. With the receive and file before us, I'll also include a staff direction. and that is to direct staff to present this information to a full council at a study session to be scheduled as soon as practical. And of course, that would be in coordination with Councilmember Glidden per our processes. And of course, being mindful of dates and available times and, specified deadlines that we're trying to work with, so it's a meaningful conversation and a timely conversation. And that within that conversation, that not in addition to what we've talked about today with this presentation, that we would also have available the FOTH study, I believe it's called, available for people's advanced consumption, as that's a very important document and set of data that informs this presentation and some of the direction we'll be contemplating moving forward. And that also we include some information about how our city's portion of the city's our involvement with the entire organics waste stream beyond the 1 to 4 units that we're involved in, that's kind of that big picture, the Minneapolis picture as a whole, so we know that what our role is in it, what are the other mechanisms, partners, and participants in the other remainder, so we can kind of see the implication of what we're doing vis-a-vis that other part of the waste stream. And I think that's an important part, an important tool for us as we contemplate the specific policies. But I think another value of having the full council participation in a study session and having kind of that big picture, specific picture component is that I'm hoping that this is a full council sort of leadership exercise hand in hand with the communications coming from the staff and from the department, because I think that can really push the participation levels that we're going to really, I think that we aspire to have. And I think in absence of that work, we might fall short. And I think we want to do what we can, everything that we can as both leaders informally, but also working with the formal communications. So with that staff direction and the receive and file, any further discussion? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, and I don't know that this has to be put into the staff direction, but maybe we can see if the committee would support adding, I'd just be curious with a little bit of a side-by-side, if we did roll it out citywide, I don't know what option we call that, but how would that impact the costs? I think you and I both agreed we kind of knew what that was, but it would be nice to see that. I'd also like to see what would the cost of a more robust promotional program be, and maybe it could be a rough estimate, and I don't know what, but just talk about that a little bit, what some options might be, because I actually think for this to work, we need to promote it and we need to get it to every household. I'm also think there might be some options for how we could pay for that by either increasing the fee per household, but I'm also intrigued with the idea of trying to incentivize it some by raising the cost of the large cart. I think that $2 to $5 difference just doesn't make anybody think about it much. But anyway, maybe some ideas about how we could get some revenue if we did want to enhance the educational component. It was soft enough inputs. I started taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very consistent with options and having a price tag to those options and seeing how it fits to the whole. Very consistent. So I would have that as a friendly amendment to the staff direction. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just another quick kind of question as we go forward. I know we're still working out where we would, where these organics would be processed in the end. And I'm really interested in the feasibility of looking at very local options for that. If there's any way we can use land within the city or in the county, if it means changing our regulations, or if that's not feasible, then fair enough. But I think it's kind of an interesting thing to think about as we go forward with where we put these things.
So delving further into the facilities issue, I think, is also appropriate because it's a key component of moving forward. And it's interesting that Councilmember Gordon earlier question highlights the notion that there aren't any facilities within Hennepin County from which this directive comes from. So it's a kind of interesting coincidence and sidebar. Any further conversation? Seeing none, we have a receive and file with the staff direction as discussed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. And we've exhausted the items on our agenda, and we are therefore adjourned.
Thank you.